It started as a small community church which collapsed on 3 consecutive times. The fourth, its final rebirth, occurred on the 3rd of February 1971. Kristo Asafo was and is still a religious movement whose leader and followers denied their own desires, emotions and passion for the interest of society, feeding the poor when they themselves were hungry and providing for the needy when they needed it most. This, of course, was in fulfillment to the mission's selfless motto: service to humankind and nation is service to God. In 1989, during the Liberian War, many Liberians became refugees in Ghana. The first ship, known as Tano River, arrived in Ghana at the Tema Harbour with over 8,000 adults. The second, 11,000 adults, and the third, 5,000 adults, children not counted. Thus, over 24,000 adult Liberians and their children who almost outnumbered them. Apostle Safo and his Kristo Asafo fed all refugees with breakfast, lunch and supper until government provided them with permanent shelter at Bujumbura. This is how selfless this man and his followers were. During the PNDC revolution, on mission to spread the word of his God in order not to put his life and that of his followers in danger, the founder had to inform soldiers about their intention to carry bags of cocoa as a contribution to nation building, which they did while spreading the word of God. His philosophy of religion, the belief in the corporality of God and the manifestation of God in man, that all men are the manifestations of God in an organic shell called flesh, and that every man can harness his God-given potential by accepting himself as the image of God, and for that matter, God can never be felt, be seen, be touched, and be experienced unless man decided to go on the journey to know thyself as God. Until then, may we as blacks, Africans, redeem ourselves from mental slavery and work toward building our country and continent. This must not happen until man feels for one another and show absolute bestowal or love to his fellow mankind. In this lies the power of giving and the love for humanity, the constant prayer to develop the Spirit of God within and without us. And so the mission was very known across the country for the marvelous works of charity and philanthropy, from donations to SOS children's homes, prison, hospitals, and the provision of scholarship to brilliant but needy children, both within and without the mission, providing for the physically challenged, etc. Giving to the poor was a key practice in the early years of the mission and even till date, which earned the founder the honorary doctorate degree of law for his tremendous contribution to fighting poverty among the marginalized in society. Notwithstanding, the power of God in him could override several scientific and physical forces, and of course, these phenomena could be described by Christian orthodoxy as miracles. Yet, Apostle Safo teaches that these events that happen or exist beyond human or scientific perception are scientific, although they have not been subjected to scientific observation, that these phenomena may not be described as miracles if mankind, especially blacks, make the resolve to pursue science and make the journey to great discoveries. By the power of God upon him, the sick was healed, the cripples walked, the barren gave birth, the blind could see. In 1981 to 1991, the man of God revealed that for 10 years, none of his 10,000 followers would ever taste death, of which many who doubted attempted suicides, yet could not die. And the most important test of all great adepts, the ultimate manifestation of the true power of God, the dead was raised and is still living today. Despite all these, the man of God would keep telling his followers that working miracles is not his mission, that mankind should accept who they are, that God lives in us, that wisdom is not obsolete, that Africans can do better if we accept who we are and research practically to solve our own problems and improve livelihood. In the early 80s, Apostle Safo would reveal his true mission to his followers, that he emanated to manifest the power of God, preach emancipation and redemption to the black African, that the African may know his true power as a manifestation of God, put his brain to use, not follow the matrix of his slave masters, and weave his own freedom. However, no adept of his kind ever traverses the earth of physical manifestation without trial. Trial is presumed to be a must for adepts of his kind to reach the ultimate spiritual acme, to prove to the world that their mission is mystery yet divine. Amidst the teaching of divine manifestation of God in man and himself, and the giving to the poor even when his followers needed it most, arose enemies within and without. Many were those who did not understand his teachings of God's manifestation in man, and the philosophy of depriving oneself for the benefit of others. The trial drew near. A revolution evolved within the mission amidst a nationwide revolution, a time where people were sentenced by firing squad. His own followers led the trial, and he was accused of several military hearings where he was harassed, maltreated, and molested. He was charged with several counts, including but not limited to: 1. That his teaching described him as God, a manifestation of God. 2. That he had embezzled church funds, and several other charges. Upon a journey of 2 months' trial of ordeals and embarrassment, when at a point the military were ordered to end his life, his God stood by him, and he stood tall, acquitted of all charges. As if that was it all, he was again handed to the military and police, where he was picked at night, 2:30 a.m., shoved into the boot of a car, beaten and tortured on a charge of stealing, which later came out as false after days in a cell. On the street of Koforidua, his hands were tied with rope, tied to the back of military car, and dragged on the street for sins he did not commit. All in the name of revolution. Yes, a revolution, because he was seen spiritually to be too powerful and one who could one day topple the military rule. Several criminal investigators were planted as moles by the revolution movement around him to find the source of his power, many of whom later became converts, and some even became pastors of the church upon finding out the divinity of the Great One, Apostle Safo, as many call him. Since 1980, Apostle Safo and his mission would have an annual agricultural exhibition where several farm produce would be displayed and distributed to various SOS children's homes, prisons, hospitals, the physically challenged, and individuals in need. The purpose of this was to inform and teach the African that we can grow what we eat of high quality standard, improve biodiversity and health by encouraging healthy organic agriculture. His fight against GMO started even before GMO appeared in public discussion of Africa in the 21st century. A decade later, in 1990, he revealed to his followers and the entire country that the one necessary move that can help emancipate Africans is for us to think in the line of science and technology. That the gap between the developed world and Africa is a technological gap. However, before this new mission, he had, since the year 1980, begun his research into the building and manufacturing of electronic and electrical gadgets, including, but not limited to, home theaters, televisions, electric motors, stabilizers, radio transmission console, etc., and musical instruments such as lead guitar, bass guitar, speakers, electric drums, just to mention a few. He would later in the late 90s discover a breakthrough in the use of palm kernel shell, seashells, and termite shells to manufacture a high heat resistive metal, which he would later use to build some parts of his first 4-stroke engine block in 1995. The annual agricultural exhibition then became an annual technological exhibition where he demonstrated that the black man is also capable, as a form of transformational change of mindset to Africans. He then began to advocate for a change in the school curriculum from the usual theoretical way to a more practical-oriented syllabus.
Technical university no a akora no onim dada na momfam free wo mo ase obi a owie JHS no nkora nketo no mpo de odi fi wo mase a no mbeduru ha o madwunu mu ye enti onko SHS no SS no na se wonimu pa enti so de ni wura sa technical university mu a na enye dene we na mpese o man no boa me ma yetumi aye na o man no ensakra ye bem.
But again, no one would listen to him. He would insist that the dependence of the black man on a so-called superior race undermines the spirit of God that lives in us, and that our skin may be black, but our mind is not black. That the brain in the skull of other races are not different from that of the black man. That we cannot continue to be subservient to others while they siphon our resources, manipulate our cultural heritage and spiritual backbone, making us powerless and impoverished. On the science and technology mission, the first car engine he manufactured became the center of attraction for the 1996 Ghana Trade Fair. Following that, he manufactured his first car, a handmade saloon car, which began the Kantanka automobile dream in the year 1998. Several products have been exhibited or launched from his research center. These include a clapping television, which is switched on and changes dials and control volume by clap. The dreamer didn't rest. He and his team built block-making machines, industrial heavy machines such as cranes, roofing tiles machines, and other range of vehicles. This was followed by a series of V6 engines, V8 engines, and several range of four-wheel vehicles, including his personal vehicles also named after his title, Odeneho. The automobile dream became bigger and the Kantanka brand expanded when in 2014, the company commercialized its first assembled vehicles. In 2009, his research team started his range of electric vehicles when the first prototype, named Odeneho, meaning one who is self-dependent or self-powered, came into view. Then came his range of armored personal vehicles and research into weaponry. Over the past years, his research into weaponry has focused on anti-missile technology, which is being built to render missiles and bombs non-harmful and not dangerous whenever launched into any space where the anti-missile radar may reach. However, over the past decade, his messages have been centered on health and, most importantly, on organic agriculture and the harmful effect of GMO and the agrochemicals on health, being the cause of most metabolic diseases and cancer in recent years. So, he embarked on research into organic biopesticides, weedicides, and fertilizers, which will be commercialized soon to replace the harmful agrochemicals on the market today. This, among others, has been the journey of Apostle Safo and his mission over the past 50 years and the past 40 years of agricultural, science, and technology exhibition. While some may describe him as the greatest spirit to have traversed the African soil, others describe him as the Great One, a manifestation of the unseen one reality who we all personalize as God, and philosophy calls it that. This is the story of one man who earned the title of Magra, that is, Father Lord of all Sultans of the Kotoko people of Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, and all over Africa and the world, proving by all historical standards that he was the great spirit that once led the black race in the early days of Earth in Mesopotamia and again incarnated to lead a God-chosen nation to Africa in about 600 BC, who is the great African cat, the lion or leopard of Africa,
Chamus. This is the journey of the star of Africa.